As I was preparing this reflection, I did find myself wondering if perhaps this somewhat random juxtaposition of the story of Moses at the burning bush and our acknowledgement of Labor Sunday offers us a bit of a modern midrashic moment in which we might imagine God calling Moses to be a labor organizer. Now, be clear, that's not the punchline I'm trying to set up, though maybe we might get a chuckle for now. For this morning's scripture, it really is a scene in which Moses receives a call from God to take a leadership role in working for justice and greater wholeness in a very specific context. And what I first notice in this scene is that Moses says the word hineni, Hebrew for I am here. Even though God has not said or asked anything of him yet, only called his name. And as my friend Raphael Gribbets helped me understand years ago, hineni is not a response to a roll call. As the present, I'm here, raising one's hand. It's more an expression of some precondition of readiness, willingness, total presence, even being prepared to offer in advance all of one's whole best self to another. Like if someone you love and care for comes to you and says, "Can I ask you to do something for me?" And you know it's important, and you say, "Sure, anything." You mean it. You are prepared to do whatever might be asked. Hineni is also how Abraham and Jacob before Moses, and Samuel, Isaiah, and Ananias after him, have responded preemptively, positively, when God called on them, even with their own moments of self-doubt, insecurity, perhaps uncertainty. So Moses has said, "Here I am, hineni." And then God says what God's going to do. "I'm sending you to Egypt because I want you to help your people who are suffering. I've heard their cries. You're the one who needs to lead them to a better place." In one of her better-known poems, Mary Oliver asks, "Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life?" And I wonder if the voice coming from the spectacle of the burning bush may have been stirring up just such a question in Moses' mind as he stood there, barefoot and bewildered, with no idea of how wild it was going to get. What was his future going to change? Now, if God in any way asked a question of Moses, it was certainly a rhetorical question, as God very clearly hands the job description to him in this story. As though to say, "Good luck, get going, let me know if you have any questions." Well, Moses did have a few questions, didn't he? Maybe excuses? As we hear what sounds like an onset of insecurity for him, and we probably know something of what that feels like when someone makes a fairly significant ask of us. You want me to, what was that? I was kind of thinking you might be just wanting a ride somewhere, or for me to dog sit for a week or so. Is Moses reluctant? Is Moses feeling a bit insecure about responding, "Here I am"? Or is it fearful? After all, there is still a price on his head in Egypt, where he is considered a murderer, killing that Egyptian who he found beating a Hebrew. Yeah, I know, he grew up in that palace. Baby Moses in the basket, you remember that story, found by Pharaoh's daughter. But that was then. This is now. Go back to Pharaoh. Things have changed so much. I mean, first of all, will Zipporah be willing to leave her family and home for this fairly major job transfer? So even though there is this moment of hesitation, maybe fear, maybe reluctance, this instance of insecurity, Jewish commentators through the ages seem to look past that moment with praise of Moses, as Rabbi Shelley Barnathan observes, for his intentionality and his mindfulness. Rabbi Barnathan tells of a midrash, an interpretation that this bush had been burning for a long, long time, but so many other shepherds had passed by without even noticing or approaching. Well, were they so focused on their work, their caring for their sheep? Were they way too busy and overwhelmed by the demands and worries of their lives? Were they simply indifferent? Did they simply not want to get involved? What is different about Moses? Now, God's promise that I will be with you, God said to him, seems to override any momentary fear and insecurity. For we know where the story goes next. He does go back to Egypt. Then there were the plagues and the parting of the Red Sea, that long, winding road through the wilderness to a promised land. So we know the story goes on. He accepts the mission, but is this larger judgment that Moses just had natural human fears and apprehensions, but really trusts God? Is that what's really happening here? So it's all good. Well, whatever the source of Moses' initial motivation to approach, or the subsequent sense of inner challenges that needed to be overcome for him to accept this call, Rabbi Bar-Nathan notes that what is of perhaps greater importance is that Moses has made a choice. Moses chooses to turn toward this holy space. Unlike other shepherds, Moses chooses to be unconditionally committed to this mission. And in Rabbi Bar-Nathan's words, what Moses is saying is, in spite of perhaps some fear and apprehension, Hineni, here I am, God. Hineni, I am here, I am present, awake, available, ready to turn my full attention to that which is before me, that needs to be done in the world. Well, in another poem, Mary Oliver offers this guidance: instructions for living a life. Pay attention, be astonished, tell about it. I think this guidance of the poet echoes what Rabbi Bar-Nathan observes about what Moses' actions have to teach us, Moses' choices, and what ancient rabbis have seen in this story. There are these are instructions for living a life. Pay attention, be astonished, tell about it. This is what Moses embodies for the people of God, however imperfectly at times. So Rabbi Bar-Nathan offers a blessing as punchline, as she writes, "May we be blessed to be awake and aware like Moses, to notice the moments in our lives when we are called to pay attention, to turn and to respond, moments in which we can be leaders and partners with God. Let us answer Hineni when we are called, so that we, like Moses, might turn to stand on holy ground, to notice, to act, and to make changes in the world, especially now." And with her, I offer these words of blessing. May our telling of the astonishing works of God that we have experienced be more than words. May our Hineni, our here I am, come from a mindful mindset, an awakeness and alertness to those godly opportunities that call out to us. May our Hineni be a promise of passionate presence, a commitment to community, that together we may see what is needed and respond with our whole being to do the work of making and remaking, even repairing, a just world for all. And may we live with a precondition of trust in the God who promises, "I will be with you." Into workplaces and anywhere there is human pain and need, may we say with our forebears in faith, "Here I am, God. Send me." Thanks be to God.